On today's episode of the Wild Party Podcast, I share an enlightened conversation with Alice Min Soo Chun, the founder of Solight Design, a company that creates beautiful, origami-inspired, solar-powered lights used in humanitarian and disaster relief efforts around the globe. From children's hospitals in Ukraine to earthquake zones in Haiti, Alice's portable solar lanterns have provided not just clean energy, but comfort, safety, and hope. Her journey began as a professor of architecture and material technology at Columbia University. But when her son was diagnosed with asthma, she made the connection between air pollution and energy use and decided to act. What started as a duct tape prototype has now become a globally recognized product that reduces carbon emissions, replaces toxic kerosene lamps, and empowers communities. We talk about design as a form of empathy, the power of light in healing trauma, and how one woman's imagination became a beacon of change for millions. Let's get the party started. Welcome to the Wild Party Podcast, where we celebrate the visionaries behind vegan, ethical, and sustainable business. In each episode, we'll dive deep into their journeys, uncovering the why behind their mission-driven business. I'm your host, Stephanie Lahart. Tune in with me for passionate discussions about overcoming challenges, innovative marketing strategies, and the power of using business as a force for good. So whether you're an entrepreneur seeking guidance or a conscious consumer wanting to support impactful brands, join us as we explore the stories behind the businesses that are changing the world for the better. Let's get the party started. Today, I am very excited to welcome to the podcast Alice Chin, who is the founder of Solight Designs. Alice was a professor in architecture and materials technology at Columbia University when her son was born with asthma. Through her research, she found that 75% of pollution in the air comes from building because of energy consumption. And studies show there is a spike with children and asthma in every urban center throughout the country. So she had already been using solar energy as her primary research topic, and she decided to focus on solar energy. So Solight was born. Welcome to the show, Alice.
Thank you so much for having me, Stephanie. It's wonderful to be here.
And for people that are watching the video version, you will notice there are 3 people on this podcast. We also have in attendance Pastor Scott Johnson, who is part of the mission side of Solight, and he's going to be talking to us about their mission-based charity work that they are also doing. But I really wanted to start out with you, Alice, because I have to find out, how did you go from idea to action? That's always the first question in my mind, because I know we all sit there on a daily basis and come up with ideas and say, oh, wouldn't that be interesting? Or we should do that. But it's, very few people that are then taking it to the action section of like, I can figure out how to do this. I know how to do this. So you already had a background in figuring out how things were put together because you were born in Korea, correct?
Yes, I'm Korean, and my parents immigrated over to the United States when I was very young. And my mother taught me origami when I was very little, as many children get taught origami these days. But my research in material technology and sustainability was really something that was of great relevance just because after years of witnessing natural disasters doing, you know, floods in Pakistan, tsunamis in Japan, Katrina, and then in 2010, when the Haiti earthquake happened, I was teaching at Columbia in the architecture department, and I said, let's do something to help. Let's step in and try to help where we can after the earthquake happened. And I quickly turned my studio around to be an innovation studio to help Haiti. And that's when we discovered that there were 2.6 billion people in the world without access to electricity, and they were using kerosene to light their world at night, which is a deadly toxic fuel. 2 million children, according to the UNDP, die from the toxic fumes and black smoke that come from kerosene, as well as hundreds of thousands of house fires every year due to the use of kerosene. But in Haiti, I did almost 5 years of field testing where I made a prototype out of glue and duct tape and made 500 and went to Haiti and distributed them to the farmers in the Central Plateau. And there was a point where I met this woman who was a female farmer. Most of them were female farmers, and she had 5 children at home, a small house, one-room house, and she said the kids were coughing and had burning eyes at night doing their homework, eating dinner, and she couldn't afford the glass to go around her kerosene lamp.
Hmm.
Um, and when I gave her my prototype, she started singing and dancing, and she said this was a gift from God. And
Alice, real quickly, can you explain to our audience what the Solight is?
oh, so the invention is this small solar lamp. Here's the solar panel, and the origami part, it twists and inflates by itself, and basically it charges in the sun, and this one has 6 different colors.
That is so cool. Okay, so if you guys are
Fun
watching
fact.
on video, you'll see the product in her hands. It's basically a cube that you can compress it so it's flat. And then when you pop it out, it is a square. So it's a portable light source, is what it is, with a solar panel on the top. So just thinking of the innovation and the uses for that, myself as a camper, I am automatically telling you I could use these, but I could also see, just living in the world in situations where we don't have electricity within our homes or our dwellings, how important that would be. Also,
Exactly.
as a child of the 80s, I will let you know I did grow up with my parents having a kerosene powered grill. And that was thankfully in our backyard. And I remember how horrific it smelled. I can't imagine being living in a home
Right.
where that was the source of our power. And like you said, without a glass enclosure around it, how, potentially like life threatening that could be because kerosene is extremely caustic. Just being near a
Yes,
source of kerosene, not like you
absolutely.
said, burns the eyes, burns the nose, burns the mouth. And to imagine not only cooking that, but that's your light source, that's really traumatizing. So take me back. So when you were actually already involved in solar studies when you were at Columbia. In fact, I believe I read somewhere that you were already like trying some prototypes to integrate solar panels within clothing and things like that.
Yes, yes. I was sewing solar panels to fabric and thin film substrates to get the technology to be thinner and lighter. That's the trend in material technology is everything's getting thinner, lighter, smarter, and faster. So that was what I was testing and doing. And then when the Haiti earthquake happened, I realized there was a solution, there was a need, and this technology could solve that problem, which is creating a better solar light that's light, portable, flat packable, so you could save on space, save on shipping costs, and also deploy very easily in transit.
Yeah, that's incredible. You explain it so well, and it seems like one of those, like, oh, obviously, but clearly that took a lot of thought, a lot of design, and a lot of planning. And as with any business, in our little pre-chat, I said I'm always interested in taking that idea. How do people take that idea to action? So when you were deciding, I'm going to launch this product or I'm going to try and launch this product, you actually did it with a Kickstarter campaign. So tell
Correct.
us what that was like and how did you raise that money to get
Um,
to where you need it to?
so it took a little while first to get enough um, a little money to get the first batch of inventory. And what the way the Kickstarter works is that you raise the money because you have this idea and a prototype that you can show that works, that people can use and be the first to get this type of new thing. And when we launched it, it was in 2015, and we raised $500,000 in 30 days. And that's what kickstarted our company so that we could actually manufacture the first batch of solar lights. First original one is called the Solar Puff. And then during the Kickstarter, there was a earthquake in Nepal, a terrible earthquake in Nepal. And during our campaign, we said, look, if you buy this many, we're going to donate one to go to Nepal to the earthquake victims. And that actually, I think that helped our campaign as well. And we were able to send 1,700 solar lights to Nepal. And we had some volunteers that went into the villages and the mountains to distribute, and we had images and pictures of the little villages celebrating with light where there was just darkness beforehand. Um, and then through the years, we basically have been able to help in disasters in Haiti, in Turkey, and last year there was the fires in Maui. This year there was the hurricane in North Carolina. And then we were able to go to Ukraine twice to deliver lights. And the first trip to Ukraine, I went by myself, also with the help of Bob Iger. Bob Iger is the CEO of Disney, and the way I got to meet him was after several years of starting the company, there was a bad hurricane in Puerto Rico. 3 million people had no electricity. And by that time, we were able to get over 100,000 lights to Puerto Rico to help with disaster relief. And I had been in conversations and early on at Columbia, I had asked the Clinton Foundation to come to my studio to see our research and all of that. And I was able to meet President Clinton in Haiti back in 2010. But because we were able to help with Puerto Rico, we got a very small award, and I was backstage with Hillary Clinton and was able to tell her the story of how whenever I go myself to deliver lights, and I usually go when there's children involved, I tell the children that the sun is the most powerful source of energy that comes to the earth every day, but the light of your heart and the light of your mind and your imagination is even more powerful than the sun. And the kids are like, "What?" They start giggling and laughing, and I say, yes, when I was a little girl, I fought, but I didn't fight with my fists. I fought with the light of my heart and my imagination. And that's what you have to do. Um, and now you are light warriors because you have the solar puff, and you are gaining energy from the sun so that you can study and read at night so your dreams and ambitions can grow. And being able to fight with this light inside you is the greatest weapon against injustice and poverty. And so I told this to Hillary, and she's like, "Oh, Alice, I love this story. This is such a good story." And by the way, we're doing a book called Gutsy Women, and would you like to be in the book? And of course, I look behind me and, are you talking to me or someone else? And lo and behold, a year later, the book comes out, and then Hillary and Chelsea start a production company, and they do a docu-series on Apple TV, and I'm in the docu-series as well on episode 6. And the team of Bob Iger's, after he left, he was like, left Disney and then went back to Disney, and it was like 3 weeks or something, that time in between. And that's when I ended up having a call with him. And through our discussions, he and his wife actually helped us to bring solar light into Ukraine. And I went to 3 different children's hospitals and 2 refugee camps to deliver this colored light because the different colors are used for PTSD therapy in children. Um, all the children were basically traumatized from the bombings and also the power outages because the Russians were bombing all the power stations. And so walking into these hospital rooms where these kids were, their faces just lit up, and the doctors and nurses actually said that I think 80% of the children were able to sleep better at night because of these lights. And afterwards, when they left and they took the lights with them, of course, the Russians are still bombing all the power stations. And, last year they bombed the hospital where I had gone to deliver lights, and half the wing was destroyed. And the doctor that I met there, I called him to see if he was okay and if he was alive. And he said, there's no light for 6 blocks around, but the children that have your lights, they have light. And so that was amazing that we made such an impact, and the families actually, if we give one light to a person, that family is usually a family of 5 or more. So you're impacting 5 to 7 people with just one light.
Wow, that is such an incredible story. And I love how you tied in, the whole thought about, being a light in the world as well. Like you had the inner power as well when you were talking to the children, because that's so important to, not only empower children at that age to, help them understand that, they mean something in this world and they do have impact. And we'll definitely take that forward. But, something like light is so essential. Whenever we tell the story of human evolution, one of the biggest momentous occasions is, and then they discovered fire, right? Like we
Right,
could control light, like, and that is huge. And that is not something we in our everyday, very industrialized lives now, in first world countries, we never think of it. I
right.
certainly, take for granted my lights now, even the ring light on my face, like, oh, everybody has light. So, we do watch the news and see these other areas, like you said, the Ukraine and Haiti that are going through these devastations. Light is one of the first things knocked out, and that's internal
Exactly.
light and
Yes, I
external light,
know, I know. But
right?
yeah, I mean, the organizations, they deliver food and water, but what
Mm-hmm.
I found is that if you don't have hope, you're gonna die. And I've witnessed this happen in Puerto Rico where there was 48 people committed suicide because they lost hope. They didn't think they were gonna be found, and they ended up, committing suicide altogether. And when I deliver these lights, it's almost like magic, especially in regions where, you know, you're living on $3 a day and you're spending up to 30% of your income on kerosene. This becomes, a lifesaver. So, and in disaster relief, you have, like, when the Syrian refugees were coming into the shores of Greece, there were operations and birthings happening right on the shore.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the doctors were using their phones and putting them in their mouth to do surgery, whereas this you can just put on the ground or on a table, or to get light in order to save somebody's life.
Yeah,
But
so the little cube is called the solar puff, right?
yes.
Yeah, and
Yes.
it's really cute. I mean, it's very mobile. It looks, very intuitive to use. Something that you could easily pack, take around because it does fold down. Like I said, I'm even sitting here thinking, oh, camping would be great. And I know that's very first world of
Absolutely.
me, but
Yeah,
I'm
but
automatically thinking there's so many uses for that. So
right.
let me ask you, going back a little, you had this idea of this solar product, these solar puffs essentially. Did you already have the design and production and I think the creation worked out before you had started meeting people like Hillary Clinton and Bob Iger? Were you already at the stage where you were ready to start delivering product? Or did you have one
Yes.
of those moments that people talk about, like success was coming at me and I hadn't even physically created a product yet?
Oh no, no. It was actually a very hard journey trying to get the right manufacturer. I had to go through several before I found the right partners. And also in starting the company, again, trying to find the right people for the team and the right people to work with. And I think with Scott being on our team, I mean, that took several years to find the right person to join our advisory board. And I feel very blessed that he's here and that he's able to help with our humanitarian side of our mission. So, but in terms of starting a company, we were full blown already selling on the market, and you're right. In the United States and Europe, we're selling to the camping and outdoor industry, the gift market, and actually in the United States, there's been a 60% increase in power outages in the United States alone due to climate change, to the hurricanes, fires. As you know, North Carolina was hit, Florida was hit, fires in the Palisades just this year. So power outages is they're unfortunately reoccurring and becoming more frequent. So we're not just able to distribute to the humanitarian side, but it's a great accessory for any home.
Right. And I like that it really brings to the conversation about the importance of life. I'm sorry, the importance of light for human sustainability, that, we need it to live and we also need it to be able to figure out ways to do things better in our world. Like, solar energy is a huge conversation out here. I'm in Los Angeles. Clearly we get a lot of sun, but, even here, solar is underutilized for us for as much sun as we can. We could use the sun for a lot more things. So I really love to see innovators like you that are taking, a very real problem of portable light and saying we can solve this easily with a sun source and in a very, easy and portable little unit, right? So I think we could do that with more things in our lives too, to be able to harness the power of the sun to do what we need to. So we're not creating pollution, we're not, hurting the environment, and we're also
Absolutely.
helping people in very disastrous situations, very situations where you can't control things. Like you brought up our fires out here. We had a lot of power outages, and man, were we me and my neighbors sitting there, everybody texting each other, is your power out too, as if we were the only ones, right? Because you're always like,
Right,
is
right.
it everybody? And let me tell you, that is so much scarier when you realize it's not just your home, it's everywhere. So I can't even imagine the feeling, like you said, of these people in disaster areas of Haiti, in the Ukraine, all the other places. What was the biggest? We just had that huge earthquake in Myanmar. And I mean, we sit there individually saying, oh, is my power out? But when you realize it's everywhere, that fear is real, that it's real.
Yes,
So, I
absolutely.
love that, you understand the mission is much bigger than just a very cute little glow in the dark box that changes color, for us camping and our rave enthusiast here. Very nice, but also gives life. And with that said, I would love to be able to bring Pastor Scott into the conversation to talk a little bit about how your sorry, to talk a little bit about how your humanitarian uh, arm of this business is now working and what you really hope to accomplish with it and the kind of work that you have going on. So, Pastor Scott, do you want to jump in here and give us a little insights?
Thank you so much, Stephanie, and thanks, Alice, for letting me join this podcast. It's remarkable what you're doing, Stephanie, and congratulations. So, Yeah, I've been pastoring for quite a few years, but in 2010, I jumped out of the pulpit to do mission work with a friend of mine to do um, basically satellite communications to aid relief organizations and missions overseas. And I was at a humanitarian conference in DC, and a guy came up to me. I think it was in 2013. So this would have been early on in the prototypes that Alice was doing. And he handed me this collapsible solar powered lantern. And he said, "Here, I want to give you a gift." And I said, like, "What is this thing?" And he opens it up and he turns it on. And I go, "Okay, I am taking this thing with me." And I had it for years. I would take it on mission trips. I have it in my window. Always charging. I have solar lanterns, her Solights in my house, always charged, ready to go, because you never know when the power is going to go out. I throw them in the car when I travel, because you never know if you're going to break down and it's going to be night. And it's just so handy. So then I started taking it on the mission trips, and more people wanted me to leave it with them, and I had no idea how to get more. So finally, after a mission trip that I took to Burundi, and a young man basically said, "You're not leaving this country without leaving this with me." I swam upstream, found Alice, and begged her to let me be a part of her board, because it's life changing, and I've seen it. And I think that what you're getting, Stephanie, is that this, when you don't have power, you have panic.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have power, you are incapable of doing so many things that we take for granted. And so I have been doing basically, I'm the Solight evangelist, and I do basically two things. One is to get it out into the mission field. I do medical missions, primarily with telemedicine, but I always take lanterns with me, and we leave them with clinics and hospitals and doctors and patients. They take them back to their little huts, and it's life transforming. Like Alice said, they don't have to spend their pennies on candles or kerosene. And so in developing countries, every penny counts. And if they can save a little bit, and especially where there's droughts, like I was in Zambia last fall, and we handed out hundreds of these. And there were people in the city, in the capital, that were only having power every other day, and only for a few hours. So I was actually handing out these solar lanterns to people in the ministries, because everybody, it's a level playing field if you don't have power, if you don't have light. And they were using them in the clinics, taking them out into the rural areas. Like Alice said, they hold up a cell phone light to try to deliver babies, and then all the fumes from the kerosenes, and it's very toxic. And now with the lanterns, they're able to have light and not have a baby entering the world with these fumes. We've taken them and handed them out to schools, where the children take them home, and they've extended daylight, so they extend their studying. So they are increasing their education. But one of the surprising aspects about this is that it actually reduces gender violence. So when, especially in the rural areas, but especially in refugee camps, when you have to use a common latrine,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have light. And so people, women and girls, and even males, are violated and molested just trying to go to the latrine. But by carrying the lanterns and stringing lanterns up, it has reduced violence, and especially gender violence.
Yeah, and
And
it's amazing. Even with just a little bit of, well, even with a low level of light, it does change human behavior.
absolutely,
You know, just
absolutely.
because there's now that pressure of being seen or being discovered.
Yep,
Right.
I go to quite a lot of festivals out here, and let
yep,
me tell you, as a rather small woman, I am 5'2". I
yeah,
rarely will. I would not go to a porta potty by
yeah,
myself,
yeah,
even
yeah,
with one of these festivals, because it seems too dark. So I can totally see in one of these
yeah,
areas to be under that threat of violence as a woman. Alice knows too. Like
yeah,
us as women, our
yeah.
entire day is spent looking around. Is anyone
Exactly,
following me? Like
exactly.
that's just my reality.
So you can
Right.
put these in your cargo pants, in your
Great.
pocket. I will go and speak to children in schools and in churches to raise funds, and they are so excited. I will pack these into my cargo pants in my pockets, and I'll tell the kids, I can light up your whole house with what's in my pocket. And the
Yeah,
kids
because the
go,
charge lasts up to 10 hours at this point, right?
"Oh, even longer. Yeah. But the other thing is they're so collapsible.
Yeah.
And so with this, the other thing that Alice was pointing out is what happens with trauma. So I deal with people with PTSD, not just children, but adults. And the purple and blue settings on this Solight gives that calming effect. And so after this podcast, I'm going to be on the phone. We're going to be getting $1,000 worth of these lanterns to an orphanage in Haiti, so that these traumatized children can have light, and then the staff can take these lanterns into their homes to have light, because there's so much violence and gang violence and gender violence going on in Haiti. The other thing about the Mega Puff, and I'll get that for you. So I don't know if you could tell, but
It also charges phones. So we've
it charges
developed other
phones.
products that are bigger and they can also charge phones. So the solar panel is larger in this one so that you can you can gather enough energy from the sun to charge a larger battery that can
Yeah.
also charge your phone.
Oh, that's amazing.
So
I didn't even realize that. So that's
yeah,
incredible now having a dual purpose for it
yeah,
as
right.
well.
Right. So the one side is humanitarian and with missions. The other side is disasters. So one of the things that I want to do more because of this, the charging of the cell phone, all these people, connectivity is a human issue, and especially with younger generations, they don't know what it's like not to be connected. And so when there's a disaster, when the power goes out, we need to be able to phone people. We need to call in help. And so when the power is out, this little thing will stay lit all night, but it can also charge phones. So I'm working more and more in the United States and in the Caribbean with disaster response. And one of the this was a product review by a meteorologist in Florida, and he gave it a 5 star and said it should be in everybody's hurricane home kit for preparedness. And for you out in California, not only the fires, but you are always vulnerable to an earthquake and power outages due to brownouts. And then we live with a myth that we're never going to have a cyber terrorism on the grid.
Oh yeah. I mean, we
So
we have a lot going on out here in California, that's for sure. But you're right. The cyber
yeah,
terrorism thing is very real.
yeah, and so that's why that's the other side of things is that I really want, because I'm on the advisory board and I make no nickel on this because I'm just the evangelist. But every home should have these, because when you don't have power, you have panic. And if you have kids and you got light and you can charge your phones, you can communicate. It is the game changer, and people will come to your house. Why? Because you have light and connectivity.
Yeah,
So
I mean, that is so important. And going just back to the amazing product design itself, Alice, so this product is actually non-toxic, recyclable, no PVC. So it essentially helps us also lower our carbon emissions, which we love, right?
Correct. Right, right. A lot of people, I mean, in the United States, people don't really think about this because we have infrastructure, but just using a solar light for a couple hours a night, one person can save 90 pounds of carbon emissions a year. And if you multiply that by the population, it adds up to something like 11 billion tons of carbon emissions. So, there I believe that all of us collectively can create change the way that we've kind of created detriment to the planet. The big plastic island in the middle of the North Pacific is because each one of us did something little, like throw a straw away or throw a bottle away, and that eventually Mother Nature created this huge, it's over the size of Texas, this huge island of plastic in the Pacific Northwest. And if we worked, each one of us did a little something to create that, we can all work together to heal the planet as well.
Yeah, you're
So,
exactly right because it's not just about cleanup at this point. Like we have to change the way we do things and the way we approach problems, clearly. And I did notice on your social media, you've been so good about getting that messaging out there and really connecting with people. I know in the beginning because you did have some, higher profile people with big names really coming on board to what you were doing. Now that you've been in the marketplace, how are you getting the message out about your product and what it can do just to change the lives of everyday people? Are you using a lot of social media or what's your marketing looking like?
well, the Wild Party is a great avenue for helping to spread the word of our mission and our company and our products. So we've been, we have a great person, Melissa Bell, who helps us with PR and media relations. Um, and we just this morning I did another podcast with someone in Spain for the UK. Where we just won tech rounds. We're number 6 out of 60 sustainable brands. In this is for the UK and Europe. So we're doing all that we can to get our story out. And thank you, Stephanie and the Wild Party, for having us join you for that purpose.
Well, you're welcome. I was so delighted when Melissa reached out to me because when I saw the product, I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. And then when I read your story and specifically about your Give a Light program, I was like, oh, I really want to make sure people know about this because you said something early on that was really important and powerful. When you launched that Kickstarter campaign, you found that people were more invested when they found out that by actually investing in the campaign, they were able to help someone out in need. And studies have shown that people are much more likely if they receive like a gift, like they were suddenly given $100, and they've done this on TV. They'll do like little tests like, hey, I'm going to give you $100 and you can keep it or you could give it to someone else. And
Pass it on.
99% of the people will give it to someone else. Isn't that
Pass it
amazing?
on. Yes. I really believe in the human spirit of kindness. And that's what people tell me, why are you going into these red zones? Why are you going into these dangerous places? And I believe that what's amazing is every time I go, you find these situations where people, you know, are in such dire straits that you would not blame them to be filled with hate and resentment, but you find the opposite, that they're filled with kindness and resilience and hope and love. And it's, of all the people that you would expect to, see the opposite. And especially in children, you see this amazing kindness. When I was in Ukraine, there was this Pastor Johnson loves this story where I went into the hospital and there was this little boy with a cast on, and he was 2 years old. He was limping and he couldn't run. He was just limping and running, and he was so excited about getting his light. He ran off limping, and then he came limping back running, but he was dragging his friend and saying, "Give my friend one too." So the kind of um resilience and kindness that you see, in these children is just absolutely stunning.
Yeah, so explain the program a little bit that I was reading about online. So when you buy a light, then through the Give a Light program, you have the opportunity then to give one to someone in need.
Yes, yes. So we have a number of different humanitarian missions. Ukraine, we have in Utah, there's the Navajo Indian tribe. There's 300,000 indigenous people living on reservations, and 60% don't have running water or electricity. And this is in the United States. So that's one of our missions as well. And then just last year, Pastor Scott Johnson went to Zambia and hand delivered lights to different medical clinics and schools there. So we're about we're about to launch another one for um, Minar. I'm not pronouncing it right. Miramar. where I think thousands, over 2,000 people have been killed in that earthquake.
Yeah, you're
Um,
exactly right. And that was quite recent. And I'm really glad that you did bring up that we do have our own need at home as well. You know, Indian reservations here, there is a lot of need for various things. I've spent a lot of time in Montana. I've been to some of these Indian reservations. I know what you're speaking of. So, you know, I do like when we also acknowledge like the US is not without its need and its resources allocation. I'll call them resource allocation issues. So, you know, as much as we look for overseas, it's like we do need to look internally as well. There are people who do need help here besides just the disaster. So, you know, it's nice to know that we now have access to solar energy so easily through something like the solar puff. Let me go back to the product design real quickly because I have to say, I know you are an architecture and designer, but your products are so beautiful. They are one of those things that just looking at them makes you happy. Was that intentional?
Absolutely, because I come from an architecture background. I was teaching architecture and design, and design matters. The way something looks matters. And, when you're in a situation where you get something of utility, if you give beauty, wonder, and awe, that's just as important as utility. And that's why I get joy out of designing things that are visually and physically attractive. And I believe that connects with the human spirit. It connects with the human psyche and it brings joy to others. So I think it's incredibly important and something that's not really discussed or talked about very much.
Well, unless it's an Apple product and that's all people ever talk about. It's like, oh, Apple products are so pretty.
Exactly.
It's like other
Right.
stuff can be pretty too. And in fact, you've expanded your line so it's not just portable lights. You also did a backpack, which is super cool.
Yes, the whole idea of the backpack is it's made out of the same material as a solar puff, so it actually is a little it's transparent. So you can put the solar puff in the pocket and it will charge during the day with the sunlight as you're walking around and it can light your backpack up at night so that people can see you and you won't get run over if you're on on your bike in the city or, hiking in the woods or, God forbid you're stuck somewhere and you need, an emergency light so people can see you. This is something that we did last year. We added the backpack so that all of our products can be carried in this, and you can use it as a regular shoulder bag or backpack, but with the lights, they can charge your phone on the go, you can have light on the go, and also it's designed so that you can actually see what's inside your bag because it's translucent.
Yeah, I love that. And it was
If
like
I
the
could,
total hands-free issue. It's like, oh, I can have light. I have something to carry my stuff in. It's hands-free. I just thought that was so cool. And it's a really pretty backpack.
if I could
Yes,
jump into that this is something that is along the lines of the backpack, but they don't have the funds for the backpack. So in these developing countries, school children have to walk to and from school for miles and usually in the dark. And so when we handed out the small version of the solar puff, it blinks red. And so the children put that on, they charge it up during the day at the school, and then on their way home, they can wear it on their back and because there's a Velcro and it blinks red because so many people are injured on the side of the road because of people driving crazy like and they can't see people. And so this is actually saving lives because the backpack, you put it on your back and you maybe Uber through somewhere and it's blinking red. But actually, in developing countries, it's saving lives of children because it alerts drivers when the kids are going to and from school. It's
Yeah, and again, bringing up the fact
amazing.
that, you know, there's many parts of the world where the streets are not lit up and you wouldn't see them or for
Oh,
whatever reason. So
yeah,
thank you for
especially in the rural
bringing.
areas. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the rural areas. So, Alice, as we're coming down to kind of like the end of our talk here, both of you have been so amazing, giving us so much information, and definitely is one of my most uplifting conversations I've had. I've just been sitting here grinning the whole
You're
time because
amazing, Stephanie.
I
You
love the
are. Yeah.
mission part. But Alice,
Yeah.
I want to ask you, what advice would you give to other social entrepreneurs that are trying to market purpose-driven products?
Well, I think you need to be extremely observant and have empathy. I think empathy is incredibly important in terms of, what's the purpose of what you want to solve and how many people are experiencing this problem and doing a lot of research and observation of what is already out there and then using that as the starting point and then how can you make this better? What are the problems of the solution? So design is really not about getting a solution to a problem, it's problematizing the solution.
Ooh, I like that turnaround there. That sounds great. And we've talked so much about these products. I really want our audience to go check them out. So please tell everyone listening and watching where they can find you online, so they can check out these amazing lights and maybe be part of like the Giving a Light program, because I really like that.
Yeah,
Buy one, give one.
it's solight-design.com, SOLIGHT hyphen design.com. And we have a page called Give a Light, and you can buy a light to give on that page. And we also give a certain percentage of our profits to Giving Light as well whenever we can. And we're a small company, but we have big hopes and dreams of doing much more to make a brighter future for all.
Well, thank you both so much for sharing your story, both Alice and Pastor Scott. It's been so, again, uplifting to talk to you both. I've just been sitting here grinning the whole time because I feel like whenever you're around people, like, and this is funny because your product is a light source. When you're around people that are also internally a light source, it just feels so good. And I'm just talking to you guys just on video, but if I were in a room with you, I would probably be hugging you both.
Yeah,
I'm going to be hugging you.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'd be hugging you too.
Yeah. You
It's
are
a
a
big
light.
hugging.
You
Well,
are a
thank you
light.
so much. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure
Thank you.
speaking to you both, and I can't wait for everyone to learn more about Solight Designs. Thanks for listening to the Wild Party Podcast. If you're an entrepreneur or professional who would like to be on this podcast, please visit boomtownmarketing.com and click on podcast. We believe that every business has the potential to change the world for good, and we want to support our community to help make the world more ethical, compassionate, and sustainable for all future generations to come. And if you're looking to build your business, no matter what level you're at now, request your free marketing consultation at boomtownmarketing.com and click Get Started.